Hello there. You're watching and listening another Rate My Team surgery from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, and my name is Mark. Good evening. I am joined by none other than Luke, aka Disable. You may have seen on the Scoutcast before. Luke, how are you? Good evening.
Yeah, very good, very good. Looking forward to it.
Got your Scout team sorted?
I have a few last-minute tinkers, but we'll get there.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. We've also got a couple of no-hopers. I'm not really sure. You may have heard of them. One goes by the name of Tom Fenley. The other, Simon March. They just happen to be the last two FBL champions. Would you believe it? In one place. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening.
How are you? You all right? You all ready for it?
Yeah, I think so.
You picked a lot of teams today. We'll talk about that in a minute. How many teams did you pick? 30 today, you reckon?
Something like that.
Unbelievable.
Too many to count, yeah.
And Simon, good evening. Are you in the UK or are you still in Singapore out there?
No, I'm still in Singapore, so it's 4:15 a.m. here, so good morning.
4:15 a.m. Dear me,
yeah, I can sleep on the nightlight tonight. I mean, you know, there's football tomorrow.
Would you normally be up at this time picking your team, or we surely not?
It's not out of the realms of possibility, but no, probably not.
Unbelievable. Okay, so the format of this is it's very informal. This is not a Scoutcast for those that are watching and listening. So any one of us could get up and shut the cat out or go to the toilet at any time. Granville's not here though, so Granville's cat won't make an appearance. We'll try and keep as professional as polished as possible. But I am slightly delirious because I've been up to the early hours of the morning. It's been a bit of a busy week, as you probably can appreciate, for us all, I'm sure. I've still got teams to pick. A lot of people are still asking about queries. That's what this is about. We're going to go into the Rate My Team thread on fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. We're going to look at some of the teams in there, give some advice, and generally just talk nonsense about fantasy football with two experts and myself and Luke. Guys, let's get started. So we're on the fantasy football thread, fantasy football scout thread. It's in the community section under articles. If you haven't got on there at the moment, you can post a team on there, and we may well pick you out and start talking about it. I'm on the first page. Tom, you picked one out straight away, didn't you? Which was it Cruise Control's team?
Yep.
So what was it that caught your eye about that one?
Well, he's managed to fit in Aguero, Rooney, Hazard, and Walcott. The defence looks okay. He's going to be playing Wilson and Mahrez every week.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, if you have in a few weeks, if we're going to have Aguero in our teams, if Rooney's doing really well, Walcott and Hazard doing really well, is that what it's going to be looking like as a template?
So straight away, what's interesting there, and a lot of people are probably thinking about this, he's gone Aguero, right, for day one. So what do we make of that? Because today's news, Pellegrini was a bit confusing, wasn't he? He kind of started off by saying, yeah, everyone's available, apart from Delph and Clichy, everyone's available. And then he went, but the South Americans might be a bit short of fitness. What I took from that was Aguero on the bench. Simon, did you listen on that? What's your theory on Aguero?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what he was implying. Definitely, Aguero on the bench, possibly coming on as a sub.
Well, he did it before, didn't he? If you remember his debut, wasn't it? He came off the bench and scored 2 goals. And the thing is, if he gets 20 minutes, he can be devastating. So.
Yeah.
I mean, that was against Swansea, wasn't it? I think 20 minutes, and I think, yeah, definitely could see a similar situation there. I mean, the likelihood is, of course, if that does happen, then we can see a price rise straight off the bat, ready for game week 2, can't we?
Well, everyone's going to be getting him, but Cruise Control here's gone in and put the money in there straight away. Are any of you three going to go Aguero straight away, or are you all doing, getting in Rooney and then reserving some funds? What's the tactic? Tom?
I did originally have Aguero on my team, but there's so much doubt about it. Sure he could score if he comes on, but I think if he comes on, they might maybe 2-0 up. West Brom away, it's not the best fixture, and then Chelsea, it kind of puts you off. I think if the second fixture wasn't Chelsea, then you'd have to seriously consider him. At the moment, I think there's too much doubt, and I think you have to basically have a plan to get him in.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people will, and we're going to see a hell of a price rise week 4, 5, and 6, I imagine, because that's the period where City's fixtures just, they go off the hook, don't they? They've got a crazy run. Me personally, I'm toyed with the idea, but I just don't see the sense in it because there's every chance he's only going to get 20 minutes at West Brom. That's not it. With Chelsea coming up game week 2, like you say, Tom, Pellegrini's not going to take any chances. So if the game's won or they're on the front foot, Aguero may not get on at all. If the game's tight, then Aguero might come on. There's no guarantee he's going to do anything at West Brom anyway. It's a tough place to go on day one. And Pellegrini's going to want him for Chelsea, isn't he?
Yeah, I'd imagine he'll be starting against Chelsea, won't he? I think that's what he'll aim to do. Whether he'll be able to score in that match, I'm not sure, but he's always got the chance being Aguero, hasn't he? So, I mean, me personally, I'll be going Rooney and keeping the money in the bank. And, I mean, depending on what happens in that first game week, if he does get those 20 minutes, comes on, looks lively, then I think that'll be my transfer pretty much. Obviously, the only issue there is you're sort of preempting that transfer where he's obviously just skipping that phase and going straight for Aguero, which it's a viable tactic, I guess, and it could work in his favour.
Yeah, that comes from someone who's already planning their wildcard game week 3. Is that right? Have you changed your mind on that, Luke?
I'm still kind of on the fence. I know it's a bit late to be still questioning it. Yeah, I still think it makes logical sense at this time. I mean, aside from a spate of injuries that you can't cope with, there's not really any other advantage I can see, apart from gaining all that early sort of value and having that early information to use the international break, gain your value, and pick the bandwagons and all the various options, all the starters and things. I just think it potentially carries more points than doing it later on in the season.
So is your team going to look very different if you do decide you're going to, basically block in the wild card straight away, or if you got a team which could work either way? Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, at the moment I'm sort of sitting on the either way one, which is probably the worst sitting in the middle, to be honest. I should probably go all out one or the other, shouldn't I, long term or short? But I mean, the short one would obviously be very fixtures based because we don't really have much else to base it on. But as we know, it can throw up surprises in the first few weeks or at any point, can't it, the Premier League? So, that could be a massive fail or a massive success. It's just that whole risk element to it, isn't there?
So Cruise Control's got Rooney and Depay in there. So, Simon, I'm going to come to you on this one. Double United. I'm wavering on Rooney a little bit. I mean, how are you feeling on United, and in particular Rooney? Are you going with him?
Well, I think Rooney was more or less, along perhaps with Hazard, the first player in my team, and hasn't actually left any draft since. The reason that I'm backing him so strongly is that his first 3 fixtures, he's got an absolutely amazing record against all 3 of them. So, I mean, I think for those, he's captaincy potential even. Beyond that, when we get to game week 4, his fixtures really weaken quite a bit, and at the same time where Aguero has become practically irresistible. So it just feels like an obvious swap. So I think in the early days, I think that Aguero will probably score. I wouldn't be surprised if Aguero scored 2 goals, maybe more in the first 3 game weeks. But I'm backing Rooney to score more in that period, and then I've got a plan basically to do a swap after that. For that reason, just because of Rooney, his record against the teams, his potency, the fact that he's up front again, that for me makes him a really, really good, outstanding first 3 game weeks captaincy pick.
You've seen my caption there. I'm still shuffling Hazard. The other day we did a burning question, and I said Hazard. I'm kind of wavering on him. Cruise Control's got Hazard in there. Very expensive midfield with Hazard, Walcott, Depay, and as a result of that, he's gone Mahrez. I like Mahrez and I like Callum Wilson. Are we all going Hazard? Is that a given? Because I've got him back in my team now, and I'm kind of wavered back in favour of having him. Is that across the board? Tom, you got Hazard there, of course?
Yeah, I've got him. I feel, there is all that talk about Fabregas, starting the season really well. Hazard maybe not so much, but it's an easy downgrade if Hazard it really is looking off the pace. You can just transfer him to Fabregas.
Yeah, and you're saying, Simon, you've got Hazard in now, taking no risk being taken.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a strong possibility that he will start, mediocre like he did last season by his standards, obviously. But with the amount, I mean, he's pushed something like 57% ownership rate now, and he's going to be captained by a big proportion of those also. And there's not, there's not a great. I mean, I say, I think Rooney is the next best captaincy option, but I think the majority of people who own Hazard, which is now the vast majority of people, are going to captain him as well. And so the situation, the stakes that creates for people who don't have him is enormous. So whether or not you think he's going to start off really, really well, the fact that there's a chance that he might hit that hat trick or do really well is just, with 56%, 57% ownership, it's just too big a risk to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, I've had him out my team, and I've tried to look at it and go. It's almost like I'm trying to be clever and go, okay, Hazard could start slowly. Let's see what I can do with a team without him. And the money is handy, but none of what I've managed to put together without him has really convinced me that it's gonna, it's enough. It's providing enough. I mean, I can do more on my forward line. I can get Benteke in. I can get Pella in, but none of them really convinced me. I mean, Luke, where do you stand on this? You're playing safe, I gather, are you?
No, I'm going without him.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think Ruth did quite an interesting. Ruth NZ, one of our sort of regular contributors, does quite informal posts a lot. If you look at the one that she's done on the site, or sorry, I think it is, has done on the site, talks about sort of the value of the players, and it's quite an informative article. He basically addresses the fact that if you're not going to captain Hazard, he's probably not the best value in terms of what his price that you could spread out elsewhere. So when I've looked at Hazard captain options, aside from game week 1, I think there's quite a long period of time where I probably wouldn't even consider him as captain. I mean, Aguero, I'm assuming, is going to be captain for most people sort of game week 3 and 4 onwards, pretty much for about 10 or 11 weeks, I think it is, or something silly like that. So on that basis, the fact that I would captain Aguero, I've sort of tried to spread the money. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but there we are. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to go right to the wire for me. And I'm just scrolling down the Rate My Team thread a little bit more. I've seen a team by Baines on Toast who hasn't got Hazard. He's gone the Fabregas route from the start. The downgrade from Hazard to Fabregas after game week 1 is probably the option to free up the funds to get Aguero. You need to do more than one transfer, but obviously with Chelsea next for Man City, you probably got a couple of weeks before you kind of have to get Aguero in. So yeah, Baines on Toast's team, no Hazard in there. He's gone Mane, Fabregas, Walcott and Sterling. Sterling's a player I want from the start. I'm kind of worried that Aguero and Sterling might be too much, but then when I look from game week 4 onwards, I think maybe not, because that's when City just look like they're going to go off on fire. Sterling, Tom, where do you stand on him?
I haven't really looked at him. I'm not sure about Sterling. It might take him a bit of time to settle. I think 9 million. Yeah, I mean, with Silva next to him and Aguero in front of him, yeah, he could become essential. But I think he's one to watch for me. I don't think you need him from the start. I think see how he goes first 3 games, and then then get him in. But I guess it's reaching the point where if you need Aguero and you need Sterling in your team, it's a lot of changes.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. This is the tactic I'm going to get. I've not taken Sterling out of my team. I put him in about a week ago, and he's not come out yet. He's one that definitely has been locked in there, which is a bit surprising. But the way I look at it is, I'm going to want 2 City attackers for game week 4 onwards.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get one before then. Otherwise, I'm just going to. Yeah. Well, it's too much. You agree, Luke?
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I'm just saving myself the transfer in the long run there. We might not get the best returns in those 3 weeks, but the end of the day, to City are one of the best teams in terms of goals and attacking in the league, regardless of fixtures. And I just think save myself the transfer, have him now, because I'm going to want double from game week 4 onwards with him and Aguero probably. You know, Silva's obviously the other option, but with that 1 million saved, I just think it's, you know, I'm saving myself the transfer there, hopefully.
Simon, where do you stand on Sterling? You fancy him at all?
I do. I'm tempted by him. I mean, there's very little in his form from last season to suggest that he's a good option. But you know, again, new team. You know, he's got a point to prove. Yeah, I can imagine that those would be the circumstances in which a player like Sterling would really thrive. I've currently got Silva instead.
Right.
You know, but partly because, you know, I really like Silva as a FPL prospect. You know, just generally, I think he's you know, so reliable. You know, when you're in a situation like the opening game weeks, and you're taking a few risks, you know, you want someone like Silva in there. Even if he hasn't got great fixtures, he can still deliver. But also, he makes it very easy to make that shift to fund that shift from Rooney to Aguero in game week 4. So he's partly you know, a value placeholder at the moment that, you know, I'm hoping will deliver some points, but, you know, also make my you know, my transfer strategy a bit easier in the early weeks.
So that's what you're looking at, is it? The downgrade from Silva to what, a 7 million or an 8 million midfielder? Is that the scenario?
Well, I suppose I could take him down to, so I've got as it stands, I've got 0.5 in the bank, so I could take him down to a 7.5 and fund Aguero from Rooney, and yeah, that's really what I'm looking at the moment. I mean, I do think that, you know, Silva is really tempting, and the fact that he frees up that extra 1 million is really tempting as well, because, you know, it could change. For me, it would mean the difference between Pele and Harry Kane, which yeah, I'm quite keen on Kane, but yeah, at the moment, you know, I think it's the first game week. Yeah, all sorts of things are going to happen that we're not expecting. Playing it safe, having, you know, some options available, feels to me like the best approach.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Kane's not a name I'm seeing in any of these Rate My Teams at the moment. And yet, I looked at the Rate My Team model that we've all been, you know, all dabbled with in the past. He's ranked second for the first 6 game weeks, and with good reason. The fixtures are really strong. But obviously, the first game is that Old Trafford trip, and that's putting everybody off. And of course, what's putting everybody off as well is that they know they're going to want Aguero. So they don't want to get Kane in for game week 1, knowing that in game week 2 and 3 they're going to be looking to upgrade their striker to Aguero anyway. Are we missing a trick here? I mean, because Kane, even at 9.5, looks value to me. Luke, what do you feel on that?
Yeah, I've got him in my team.
Right, okay.
I'm going with Kane. Like you say, I still think he offers value. There's that nagging feeling, you know, from last season's price, and you just think, well, it was such an extraordinary season, you know, he can't match it. But I say even if he drops off by 20%, he still looks good value at that 9.5. Plus, there's also, like you've said, the fixtures. To me, it looks pretty likely to be on penalties. I know Townsend's hasn't in the past, but seeing as though he's now number 1 and Townsend's not assured of starts, I think you've got hat-trick potential there with Kane, and he is a captain option. So, you know, he lasted the whole season as well once he came in, didn't he? He didn't really get injured at all. So yeah, I think he looks like a good, solid option, and I think he should be in more sides, like you say. I mean, I know he's in more sides in terms of the overall ownership, but in our sort of Rate My Team feature, he's not that prevalent from what I can see. So yeah.
No. So I'm just scrolling down here to, still on page 1, to the Desi Messi, his team. He's one of many who seem to be going for Benteke for their mid-price striker. A lot of Rooney on there, a lot of Callum Wilson. And Benteke seems to be nudging in ahead of Pella and certainly Kane. Tom, where do you stand on Benteke? I mean, is it too early? I mean, I'm tempted, but I don't know. I'm just a little bit worried about Liverpool now. He's going to fit in.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually in my current draft, but I'm really not sure about him. I mean, I was looking at Kane as well. I'm not sure how Liverpool could start. Benteke could get a hat-trick against Stoke. You just don't know. Or he could... I mean, he might go a couple of weeks without scoring, but I'm pretty sure he's going to going to start knocking them in. But then there's the away fixtures. I mean, one thing I've been looking at a lot is Benteke and Mane, or Henderson and Pele, and sort of which Liverpool and Southampton options to have. Talking about this the other day on Twitter, and yeah, we Benteke is the guy who's going to get goals in that team. So at the moment he's in there, but it's not a certain.
Simon, views on Benteke and Henderson. I mean, we saw a team. We did a rank my team Sergio last week, and a couple of teams have both. For me, that's a little bit too far. Henderson seems to have drifted out of favour. He was in a lot of pre-season lineups about 2 weeks ago. Now, not so much because other options have come forward. Benteke and Henderson, are you going with one of those or not?
Yeah, well, Benteke was in my original draft. And then as soon as that was before he moved to Liverpool, and
right.
Okay. I still had some, I still had faith in him when he got there. But then I looked at it and I had Henderson in midfield, Benteke up front, and I just think, that I do my gut says that he will perform well at Liverpool, and he could actually start off with an explosive score. Absolutely, but the more rational side of me says, well, there are other options that I think are more reliable, have better fixtures in that price bracket, and I'll leave my options open as far as Benteke is concerned.
So is one of those Pella? Because last night I was watching the Europa League tie, and I like Tom said, I'm kind of swapping the Southampton option between Pella and Mane all the time. Pella scored. I was like, right, I'm going Pella. He's going to start. They need his physical presence up front. Mane scored. Pella's out. Mane's back in again. I mean, are you going with one of those or?
Yeah, Pella was the swap.
Yeah.
So saved 0.5, which is now in the bank, possibly helping Ozil to Walcott if I need it.
So you're not going Walcott from the start then?
Well, I mean, a lot could change between now and
tell me
tomorrow.
about it.
But I'm tempted. I mean, you can't deny the fact that the Walcott is one of those players that can absolutely explode. And I'll be very nervous about that, especially after what happened in the last season.
I was going to say, he nearly done for you, didn't he? So,
absolutely.
It's funny how you build affinity to players, because I've gone Mane simply because he got me that hat-trick. And he's been in and out of the team. He's back in now. So you've got this kind of love-hate relationship with Walcott, which you're probably always going to have because of what happened on the final day. I'm sure Jinswick will have him in. But, I've got Walcott and Mane. I'm all about goal-scoring midfielders this season. I'm all about Sterling, Mane, Walcott. These are midfielders that are almost playing up front, and in some games are classified as strikers. And that's how I'm setting my team up at the moment. I'm looking at Rooney because he's probably the week one best option. I've got Callum Wilson, and someone who I haven't seen on on page one certainly. I've banked Sacco for game week 2. Anyone looking at Sacco? Luke, have you looked at him for game week 2?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's got those 2 home fixtures, hasn't he, from game week 2 onwards that look pretty tasty, and obviously he's been scoring quite a lot in pre-season. He looks like he's certain to offer good value at 6.5. At the moment, I think I've got Vardy off the back off the back of 4th place finish. I can't remember his name now. Fantasy Freak, is it? I think that's it. Yeah. Off the back of his post, he makes a good argument. Obviously, it's the game week 1, which seems to be quite a problem across the board, really, isn't it? There's a lot of players that don't really have a great game week 1 fixture, but then from game week 2 onwards look quite good options, and it's just when you look at them in your team, away to Arsenal for Saka, you just think, Arsenal have kept, I think it's 10 clean sheets at home in 13 games in all competitive tournaments, so that includes the Charity Shield and Europe. Yeah. I mean, that's an astonishing record. I can't see how Saka's going to score game week 1, and I know it's very short term to only be looking at that, but it's just hard not to, isn't it, when you look at it in your team?
Yeah, especially when you're planning your wildcard game at 3.
Well, yeah, exactly that as well.
I mean, it's really tricky. But I mean, looking down on the Cisco kid, I found the first one with Sacco, and he's got he's got my forward line, and he's almost got my team. Apart from he's got Silva in midfield, and I've got Sterling. Looking at the back, I mean, it's quite interesting. You know, Cedric didn't play for Southampton last night, and everyone panicked a bit. But we're pretty assured that Cedric, he's top of the. I mean, he was top of the watches. I've knocked him down to 2 behind Koscielny. Everyone got a Southampton defender. Tom, you're going in with Cedric, or are you looking beyond that?
Cedric at the moment. There's question marks about whether all these new players are going to do well. But Coman, came in last year and they did really well. So I can't imagine he's going to have too many issues getting them into shape. And fixtures are good, so I think you have to have one, and you can't have Target, and the centre backs it's all a bit sort of up in the air. So
well, nobody knows. I mean, this is what's interesting. If Corker gets it, then there's nothing on offer. If Yoshida gets the spot alongside Font, then suddenly there's a 4-5 option there, maybe. But until they get somebody else in, they're talking about still shopping for another centre back. So it looks like Cedric's going to be. Or Scattenberg in goal, perhaps. That's something I've looked at.
Yeah,
Simon, have you got the Southampton back four covered?
Yeah, I've got Cedric. Also, seems the best value entry into it, and also he's got a bit of attacking threat as well about him, which could transfer to great value. But it's more the fact that Southampton have been very consistent with clean sheets, and they've managed to sustain that, even though last season they had a lot of upheaval, and this season they've had some similar. But I kind of back them to be able to work through that.
Where do you stand on defenders? Because there's a lot of talk about everyone is recognising that Koscielny and Ivanovic are the best 2 options in the Chelsea-Arsenal defence, and most of us are going to cover those 2 defences, or maybe at least one of them. So are you looking at Azpilicueta and Mertesacker, which seems to be the most popular choice because they're that little bit cheaper? Again, is that a result of Aguero being someone we're going to want? Are you doing that, or are you going all out with Ivanovic and Koscielny?
So I think really it's a balance between who you think are the best defenders and who you think will be the best defenders that score, or rather who you think are the defenders that will score the best in the first 6 game weeks. And I've gone for the latter. So actually, I've kind of avoided all of those. And I'll read you my back line, actually, if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
I've got Richards. I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Coates.
Absolutely spot on. I am the master pronouncer.
Really? Okay,
you got that correct.
Oh, nice. Jenkinson, Huth, and Cedric. And that's my back 4, and that's very much driven by early fixtures, some rotation within there. Also among my goalkeepers, which is the classic Rutland combination.
Yeah, I got that.
And really, what I'm looking at is that I think that players like Koscielny, Ivanovic, Azpilicueta, all these players, I think come 2/3 into the season, these will be the standout defenders to have. But I'm not convinced that that's going to be the case in the first 6 weeks. So I'm hedging that a little bit, and not going too cheap in defence, but really putting the emphasis a little bit more on midfield and forwards, and really playing the fixtures as far as the defenders are concerned.
Eric Dier's the one to get, isn't he? The first few weeks.
Well, he's playing holding mid, isn't he?
We're going to see that again, aren't we? James Chester, I think, as well. First
he did it last year, wasn't he? He was the top scoring player. Don't ask me how I know this. He was the top scoring player on game week 1. I know this because of Apple Bonkers quiz at Scout Camp calls that one of the questions. It was and everyone got him. That was a bandwagon. Chester was a bandwagon, and Eric Dier, playing midfield, but he's playing at Old Trafford. But if he holds that position, he could be an option. Seriously, he could be.
Yeah, I suppose he could do. I haven't really thought about it, but yeah, I suppose he could do. Any defender sort of playing out of positions always catches the eye, doesn't it?
So are you doing the same as Simon, or have you got Koscielny and Ivanovic, or Mertesacker or Azpilicueta? What have you done, Luke?
Well, if I go with my non-wildcard team, I think I will set up with Koscielny and Azpilicueta. Although I really am a fan of Bellerin, and I do think he is, as close to nailed as he can be, really. I don't see Debuchy too much of a threat. He might pop in on the odd occasion, but as long as you've got a good bench, I don't think that's an issue. I just think Koscielny, with the BAPS, and especially after the Charity Shield, I know it's only one match, but it just shows you the potential of the guy. And I already said, 10 clean sheets at home in the last 13 competitive games. To me, Koscielny is nailed on for bonus points and clean sheets. It's as simple as that. But Bellerin is going to get the odd goal and outscore him every week. But I think over the course of the season, as long as he stays fit, Koscielny should be a really good option.
And Tom, what are you doing? Are you going heavy, or are you reserving funds like Simon?
No, I'm leaning towards Simon's approach. Koscielny's probably my favourite defender in FPL terms. Because of the points he got me in.
There you go. There's that affinity to that player again, because he almost won you the FPL, didn't he? Effectively,
and I agree with Luke. He's going to get bonus points. He's going to get the occasional goal. But for me, I'm going pretty cheap in the defence, and it will probably be Bellerin or Mertesacker, just for that $500,000. Cedric, probably a Leicester defender. Francis Jenkinson. Sort of the players I'm looking at, but no Chelsea defender actually.
No, I mean this is it. I mean, the thing we've got in our favour of the Chelsea back four is there'll always be an option which won't go up in price. I mean, if Ivanovic explodes, he might go 7-2, 7-3 in 6 weeks, maybe, right? But you'll always be able to pick up Terry or Azpilicueta. Probably they might go up 0-1, but it's not going to go crazy.
That's a good point.
Whereas obviously if you do go in heavy on your defence, and you forego, the likes of someone like Sterling, and he does explode, he could be 9-5 by game week 4 or 5. So there is that. That's the thinking, I guess, with being conservative with your spending at the back, in that you'll always be able to pick somebody up. Certainly from the Chelsea defence, and probably from the Arsenal defence as well. I did have Azpilicueta and Koscielny in. I'm probably going to forego Azpilicueta and save $1 million there. But Koscielny or Mertesacker, I probably will go on him. I think Arsenal are going to start really solid. I mean, they just look a different animal. They look like a team who are going to get a 1 or 2 goal lead and then not going to go crazy like in previous seasons. And they showed it in the Community Shield. They just protected what they had, and I think that's what we're going to see from Arsenal a bit more. And if that does happen, then perhaps Koscielny is going to get those bonus points. But there's so many good attacking players in that team. That's the trouble. That he's always going to be up against it to get.
It does seem in general, doesn't it, this season there's so many more attacking options than from previous seasons. Maybe I've got that wrong, but it just seems, striker-wise especially, there's just seems to be so many different options to pick compared to last season. I don't know if you guys feel like that.
The problem is it's the Aguero factor and it's the Sanchez factor as well, right? Because no one's talking about Sanchez on these threads. No one's even thinking about it. I mean, if anything, Sanchez has maybe got a better chance of figuring than Aguero this week. But what do we do? What do we do about Sanchez? I mean, is he too expensive? We did a burning question about this. Tom, what do you feel about? He's one of my favourite players. So, but I may not end up with him in the team. Are you looking at him?
Not.
Oh, we lost him, I think.
Yeah, lost him just at the crucial moment.
I think he's one later in the season. Arsenal attack. Any of them could score well each week. It's such a lottery. So why pay extra $2 million for a ticket into that lottery?
Yeah. I think with Walcott there's still a factor. Like I said in the burning question, I think it puts me off Sanchez a bit. It's going to be painful watching Arsenal with Sanchez on the pitch because unlike Ozil, I fear him much more. Ozil, I think, won't have many explosive games. I think he'll be like a Silva. He'll accumulate points over a series of matches. But Sanchez can go crazy. That's the trouble. So it is a problem. Simon, how are you approaching Sanchez? You gonna go without him?
Well, yes. I mean, he's very tempting, and I kind of agree with all you're saying. I think that the fact that Walcott has all the potential to match him for heavy hitter status, dissipates his appeal slightly. But in a sense, they do the same to each other. And that's my question. Is I'm not really sure I can see an Arsenal squad that has Walcott and Sanchez both playing in their best positions, the best, their highest standard together, which I think is always going to create a bit of a doubt about both of them. And partly for that reason, I've gone for Özil to begin with.
Have you?
Because I have at the moment, yeah, but remember the 0.5 in the bank, so Walcott is pretty tantalising, as a straight swap before the season starts. But just because he seems very, in what I've seen of pre-season, he seems very, very set in that number 10 spot. He's very involved. He has a certain degree of set pieces and things, and my thought is that he could emerge as the Arsenal equivalent of David Silva, which I think at an 8.5 would be excellent value.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He's a very similar player. I mean, you saw. Did you get along to the Singapore, the Asia Trophy? Did you get to see him in the flesh play for Arsenal?
I did, yeah. So, I mean, the goals were spread around. Walcott scored a great goal. Özil also scored a goal and assisted. So he was one of the standout players of the final game. But then, it's the classic Arsenal midfield conundrum, because you look at their other pre-season games, and you've got Cazorla being the standout player, and sometimes Ramsey, sometimes Wilshere. It's so hard to call. So really, I'm trying to drill it down to things like who is the most nailed on in the best position, and who do I think is going to be the most involved all round, and in that sense possibly have the best potential of being involved in as many goals, whether he scores them or assists them, as possible. And for me right now, that's Özil.
Yeah. I mean, his numbers last year, although he didn't do the fancy numbers, his Optus were incredible in terms of chances created. He was creating chances quicker than anyone in the league. So, and you've got to think, if Walcott's going to take more chances than Giroud did, then they're going to score more goals, and Özil's going to get more points. I don't know. The Silva analogy is very true. I found a team on page 2. Shamads has got Silva and Özil in the midfield, with Henderson, Rooney, Lukaku, and Gomez as his forward, which is interesting. So he's gone Silva, Özil as well. For me, those two players, they're absolute class. But the trouble is, I don't still put Silva in that explosive bracket, and I don't put Özil in that bracket either. And so for that, I think the problem with them is you're never going to want to get rid of them. So they'll get an assist just about enough, in 1 week, in 2, or 1 week in 3. They'll do just enough to make you think, well, I better keep them. In the meantime, there's explosive players like Sterling and like Walcott who could be hugely outscoring them, but you won't want to move away from Silva. It's the long game with Silva and Özil, and in the long term, those two could be brilliant side. I mean, there's no doubt about it, their quality, but I just worry about that explosive nature early on. I didn't get on Ramsey back 2 years ago when Tom won it, and he just kept going and going and going, and I just worry that someone like Walcott or Sterling could do that again. And if I'm sitting on a Silva or Özil, it's hard to sell those two because they're just so. Yeah,
there's also the captain thing to throw into that. I mean, I know some people may be comfortable to captain them, but it's the whole, you've got a 10 million and 8.5 million option from those teams. Would you be that comfortable captaining? I'm not sure you would. I mean, I think it would take a lot of bravery to go with it. I mean, you might pick up 1 assist, 1 goal here or there, but you don't really see it, like you said, that explosive potential from those two people. Well, I don't anyway.
I think, to be fair, Simon, and this is probably what you're banking on, Silva has almost nudged into that bracket, though. Last season, it was a strong one for him, wasn't it? And he did suggest he was going to be pushing Hazard and pushing Sanchez. Do you see him closing the gap on those two?
Well, Sylvie, I think definitely. But if you drill it down to points per game, then Silva scored 6 points per game, which was 0.1 less than Hazard. And then Özil scored 4.7 points per game, and that was the 6th highest of all midfielders. putting him just below Sanchez, Fabregas, Silva, and Hazard, and Sigurdsson. So, in terms of reliability, I think if you've got these players and you can manage to set up a team that sustains them throughout the season, then you've got a fantastic bedrock of points in which to build upon. And to some extent, if you're looking at explosive players, that by the very nature of explosive players, you've got to put up with a couple of game weeks where they're not going to score big points, and in those cases, you need those kind of guys that are on set pieces that are going to get the odd assist, that are going to get the 6 points every now and again, just to kind of keep you ticking over until you get the big points from your big hitters, and they accelerate you up the league.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, it's what you're saying is making me think. So I'm looking at my midfield, and I've targeted Mane and Walcott and Sterling. Now those are three players that they'll go 3 or 4 weeks with nothing, and as we saw with Mane, he can just do something ridiculous. Walcott's the same. Sterling probably will be the same as well. I'm relying on Sterling to be a little bit more consistent in that City team, but I am worried that I haven't got a Fabregas, I haven't got a Silva, and I haven't got an Ozil, and maybe one of those three is the way to go, because like you say, they just give you that drip of points. And I don't have that at the moment, and yeah, it is food for thought. That Luke, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I've gone for the goal scorer mids as well. I just like the fact they get the extra point for a goal. You've got that clean sheet percent. I know they both got the clean sheet potential, but for example, in the Mane versus Pele argument we've already discussed, he gets that extra point for a goal. Mane gets the extra point for a clean sheet. So for me, he just seems like the better option there. And how you said already, I just prefer those explosive players. They're just a little bit more exciting to own. I don't know, maybe it's misguided, but that's just the way I feel about it. And I just feel more comfortable captaining them. I know that you're going to get those zeros every now and then, but yeah, I like the idea of goals, basically.
Yeah, so Luke, we're not listening to either of the former FPL champions.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Not sure about that. I might want to log off in a minute and just get back to my team.
Well, Milner's another one that could potentially fulfil that role as dripping in points. I see him dripping in points. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, maybe not to the rate that Ozil and Silva are. That's
just so unsexy, isn't he?
Well, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about cheap mids before Tom has to go. I know you're on the verge of leaving us in a minute, Tom. So before you do, cheap midfielders. Everyone's looking at a fifth midfielder. A few names knocking about. Ashley Westwood's come into it recently, mainly because Sherwood's come out and more or less cemented his starting role. I've gone Mahrez, and I'm looking at Matt Ritchie as my two kind of enablers in there. So Mahrez and Ritchie for me. Tom, where do you stand on that? Have you got a name?
Well, I've actually got which a few people have got is Ritchie and Sacco as sort of expensive rotations. I've never ever had put that much money on the bench before. Guaranteed I'm gonna have a £6 million player on the bench, but I've never done it before. Kind of feel like experimenting, but it could change completely. I like Mahrez as an option, though I'm not entirely sure about Ranieri at Leicester. Though if he's playing behind Vardy and Ujaya, then he's definitely one to watch. There's just not really. I mean, it's difficult to get excited about the 4.5 midfielder. I think it's.
They're just atrocious this year, aren't they? In terms of.
There's no George Boyd, is there? No George Boyd for us, that's for sure.
No.
Simon, what have you got in your pocket in that budget range?
So I've gone for a rotation between Ritchie and Deeney up front. Okay. Yeah. So the idea being that obviously they actually rotate really, really, really well, and so I'm more comfortable. Obviously, they're both. Unknowns as far as the Premier League's concerned, come with good pedigree from the Championship. But the fact that they have good fixtures and they'll only be playing in their good fixtures, for me, makes me quite comfortable with them. So they'll either be my third forward or my fifth midfielder each week. And what I suspect will happen is that one will emerge as a player that you want to play every week. And so I'm just hedging my bets a little bit on that respect. But to begin with, that's the idea. But I have to say I do like the look of Mahrez, and there's a few that have flown under the radar in that price bracket, like Shelby, and even Chris Brunt, if he.
Steady on, Simon.
Well, if he's not played in defence, then actually, I mean, even if he is, if you look at Brunt's figures for the last seasons, I mean, he's been over or round about 100 points every season for 6 seasons. It's an unbelievable level of consistency.
I mean, you like an
he's
assist,
always priced
don't you,
incredibly cheaply.
You do like an assist by the sound of it. Silver, Ozil, Brunt, these are the players. You're almost a polar opposite to me, because I'm just going straight for goals. You definitely like these creators in there, and there's no, it's a good policy. But yeah, talking of Brunt, I mean that's not a player I'd consider. I mean, it's just West Brom, isn't it? Because Berahino's in a few lineups I've noticed tonight.
I was going to say,
and he's done well for ownership, and no one's looking at him.
If you look at the Mighty Ducks team, which is on, it's caught my eye. If you go on to
page is that, Luke?
I think it's 6. Let me just scroll up. Yeah, it's on 6.
You're 2 pages ahead of me now. Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
All right, no, it's fine. Mighty Duck then. So who's he got then? Go on, talk us through it.
Well, his team's definitely different, but
I've got it here.
He's gone for Lambert up top.
Right.
So just as you mentioned, Berahino. So yeah, I mean that's caught my eye. I mean, just if you look at that. The whole structure there, he's gone for Lescott at the back, he's gone for Richards in defence, he's gone for Mingale in goal. They're not picks that I'm seeing an awful lot. They do carry quite a lot of potential, so it's definitely differential. I mean, where do you guys sort of see the Lambert situation? Do you think he'll score enough goals for West Brom?
I think he's a good pick. I just think, I mean, the same applies for Berahino and Brunt. In fact, they've just got really horrible fixtures to start the season off. And so many good choices, so many players that I think will prove to be really great value over the course of the season. But first 6 game weeks, I wouldn't want to go near them, to be honest. So yeah, it's influenced by that perspective, to be honest.
Simon, you spent a lot last season banking your transfers, so making no changes, then making 2 the week after. Looking at the way the fixtures are panning out, and with Aguero, Sanchez all coming forward, do you think you're going to have that luxury again, or do you doubt whether you're going to be able to have those opportunities early on?
Well, at the moment, the only transfer that I'm really looking at is to get Aguero in for game week 4, which gives me 3 transfers in order to make it happen. And I think, I mean, it's very similar last season. There were lots of times where I felt I could improve my team if I made the transfer this week. But I think longer term, I'll have a better return if I bank that transfer and do 2 the following week. So it's I suppose a case of being a little bit disciplined and sort of saying, okay, I'm not going to chase what I think might be kind of short-term points and play a little bit of a longer game in that. I do think it's slightly more difficult this season because there's quite a lot of fluctuations in the fixtures within the first maybe 10 weeks or so. It's not until maybe game week 11 where we see a really obvious fixture switch, which is incidentally when I'm kind of looking at wildcarding. I know a lot of people are looking at wildcarding in game week 4 as well.
What about you, Tom? I mean, we'll let you go in a minute because I know you've got to shoot off. So we'll end it for you in terms of your wildcard and early changes. Presumably you're still tinkering with your team, but do you think you're going to have a team at the end of by 11:45 tomorrow that you can sit on for 4 or 5 weeks, or do you see an early wildcard beckoning?
Originally, when I looked at the fixtures, I was pretty sure. I guess the main thing is that now that you have a wild card for the first half of the season and then the second half, it's completely different to previous seasons. In the past, I've always saved my wild card and pretty much pretended I don't have it. It's literally for emergencies. You should plan your team as though it doesn't exist. And I think I'm leaning towards doing that this time. because you've always got the option of playing it if you need to. But if you plan to play it, I don't know. I just think it's such a useful tool later on in the season when there's double game weeks. If you're using it early, unless you are completely sure that your team is terrible and there's no way of fixing it, I'm not sure it's the best way to be thinking.
And the thing is as well with the chips this year, that's the thing. The wild card can't be played in the same week as the chips, but it can set the chips up. And they look potentially, if you play them right, could be devastating. So you kind of think you're going to play a wild card in tandem with at least one of those chips as well. So that's a factor. Although, looking at the way it is, I mean, there's going to be a double game week in the last 8 or the last 7 game weeks. So you're going to reserve a chip there. You get a wild card for that. Presumably, we're going to play one of the chips before Christmas, though. So I don't know. It's very difficult. I mean, what's your view on the chips, Tom? Before you go, I mean, do you welcome them, or have you got doubts about them?
Not really. I think they just make it a bit more random, which I guess people would argue that it gives the more serious players an advantage over the casuals. But for me, it's the amount of luck involved. It's just increasing the amount of luck. If someone plays it on a random week and someone gets a hat trick, then they could jump from 50th to 1st. But it'll be interesting to see. It's always nice for things to change and to have to deal with new strategies.
It will be very interesting to see. Tom, thanks for joining us tonight. I know you've got to rush off now and see some friends. So I can't quite believe you're socialising the night before the FPL. So that's what happens when you win the FPL.
Yeah, just relax. Hopefully we can experience that one day.
Yeah, well, Granville will be having that next year, I'm sure.
My friends didn't know that it's the start of the season. Yeah, I have to go and
They don't even know it's the start of the season tomorrow.
No, I imagine a lot of them. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so at least having talked about football for an hour with us, you now don't have to talk about football until tomorrow morning. When you're rocking in your chair, talking about your team to yourself, like I will be, I'm sure. Thanks, Tom, for joining us. We'll catch you later, and good luck if I don't talk to you before tomorrow's deadline.
Yeah, best of luck to all of you for the season.
Night, Tom.
Thank you. Good luck.
So, Simon, just before you go, what do you think about the chips as the champion? Are you quite relieved they weren't here around last year?
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely the nail on the head. To be honest, that was my immediate thought when I saw them, was that I'm glad I've won it, because whoever's going to win it this season is going to really have to go through it on a level that even I didn't, and I felt the pressure definitely. I mean, I think, so some people will say it's a little bit gimmicky. I can see why they've done it. It adds an extra dimension to the game and possibly elongates the interest in it. What I think might be interesting is in that there are certain casual players that will play at around. I mean, I still think that people will drop off around Christmas time, whatever happens.
Yeah.
If I were a type of person to do that, then I would play all of my chips in the first few months of the season, which is really going to skew ranks for for some time. So unlike wildcards, for example, which were quite concentrated on certain game weeks, I think this could be something that actually adjusts the level at which you can as a serious player emerge beyond the casual players.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I presume they looked at it as a way of holding the interest of the casual player, and for the casual players to feel they got an opportunity to catch up. But actually, the way I look at it is, people who go to our site, they're going to have much more of an advantage, because we'll be talking about it. All the community will be talking about it. When there's a game week to play one of those chips, they'll know about it, right? So we'll all be analysing it, and we're going to be able to use those chips, you'd hope, more effectively than the average FPL manager who doesn't doesn't live, eat and sleep fancy Premier League like we do. So I mean, I don't think it's going to do what it is designed to do, but at the same time, it does add new strategies. There's no doubt about it.
It does, and I think as it matures, then the strategies will become more apparent and will become part of the game. But for this season, at least, I mean, I think it's sort of. I feel like it makes it slightly more dependent on luck. I mean, it's always dependent on luck to a certain extent, but now you get the feeling that if somebody absolutely nails all 3 of their chips, and does well with their wild cards, then that's it. And that
just probability alone, and someone's going to do that, aren't they? There's going to be multiple people that will do that.
Yeah, which potentially undermines maybe 30, 33 game weeks, really.
Well, it's another thing that Granville's going to throw my way. If I happen to get any luck at all with one of the chips, I'm going to be hearing about it from Granville, aren't I? I mean, going back to you on final day as well, Simon, imagine, right, instead of watching the 10 teams below you, you'd have been watching, like, what, page 2? You'd be watching, like, what, the top 150? Because any one of those could have had a triple captain on the final day and put it on Walcott, and then it's good night Vienna, isn't it? I mean,
no, it would be horrible. Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure how the winner this season, what's going to be left of him, to be honest, when he when he does do it, because he's really going to have to go through, or she perhaps is going to have to really go through it. I can't see it.
Do you think there'll be someone out there that triple captains a player that gets a red card?
Almost certainly.
Yeah, it could happen, couldn't it?
Could you imagine how bad you would feel? Oh my God.
Well, you could triple captain Costa, couldn't you? And and of the captain candidates, Costa's a walking red card sometimes. I mean, there's going to be some stories. These chips are going to produce some fantastic stories, and no doubt, hopefully on future Scoutcasts we can bring them out in the community, or sure we won't be slow in putting them across. No. Before we go, Simon, we've got to talk about Radio 5 Live. You did an interview just before this, and I know obviously you've been rubbing shoulders with celebrities in the last hour with myself, Tom and Luke, but before that you were knocking about with a couple of footballers, weren't you?
Jermaine Jenas and Alan Shearer. So.
The Jermaine Jenas, amazing, as a Forest fan there. No, sorry. So what did you have to do? Pick their teams for them?
So they sent me their teams before the interview and asked me to pick holes in them essentially. And actually, Jermaine Jenas had a pretty solid team.
He's a clever lad.
Yeah. He didn't have Hazard though. So.
I've seen you, Alan Shearer's management before, so I wouldn't be going there.
I'm saying nothing. So Jermaine had the better team, did he?
He did, yeah. He didn't have Hazard though, which I think is is an interesting approach. And I think there were areas for improvement, but generally he had as good a team as I've seen in the Rainbow teams.
Luke, what's going on? Fancy football, mainstream, dare I say it? Shearer and Jenas talking about fancy football Radio 5 Live. I didn't think I'd ever see the day. It's ramping up a bit, isn't it?
Incredible, isn't it? It just keeps on growing and growing. We can only hope. I mean, in the Sky game, there's loads of celebrities that play it every year, but I mean, they're generally absolutely awful. I think Gary Neville's not actually too bad. I think he won it for them last year. So. Yeah, it just keeps on growing. It's great for us, isn't it? The more people that get involved with it, the more competition.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Simon, whether you're going to be like an 80s footballer looking back in 10 years' time when the guy who wins the FBL wins £1 million or something like that. And they really are like FBL winners are major celebrities.
They signed you up. They signed you up to manage a real Premier League team.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to look back at it and go, I won it when it was really unfashionable and it wasn't nowhere near as big as it is now. Seriously, it does seem to be just growing in stature. And 5-10 years ago, it was seen as a kind of geeky thing. Don't know why it would be geeky.
No.
But it seems now that it's getting much more accepted as a kind of facet of football fandom in general.
Yeah, I think this might be the season where we break 4 million players as well.
Yeah.
Which would be, quite a big landmark.
Yeah, and as I say, the FBL champions of future years could be on tour buses going around the world, and you'll still be in Singapore looking at that, going, oh, what's going on? So you're coming over to the UK soon, now, are you not, Simon? Because you're going to be cashing in your FBL prize, aren't you?
End of the month, yeah. So watching a few Chelsea games. One of them's against Newcastle, which Alan Shearer was very happy about. Until I told him that I was supporting the other side. No, I'm looking forward to it, definitely.
And so before we go, Luke, have you got your Sky team sorted? Or, I mean, because most of us, Simon and I and Tom will be agitating about FBL teams. Obviously, I've got my Sky team. I've got that sorted, Lo. Are you going to be doing both teams overnight, or have you settled on both?
Well, I've got work in the morning, so I think I'm just going to leave it and go to bed. I'm pretty settled on both of them. It's a lot of stress, isn't it, to try and sort out two teams. I can understand why people only focus on one. There's some people out there, I'm sure, doing UFPL, doing Daily Mail, Telegraph, Sun. It's incredible. They look settled for now, and obviously there's a long way to go yet, isn't there? So I'm sure there'll be multiple changes throughout this season. You just want to have everyone, don't you, at this stage? And considering you've had everyone in your team at some point, there's just going to be that painful moment. I just tinkered him out at 5 minutes.
And the thing is, the more teams you have in more games, it's almost like you've got every player. So every time someone scores, you go, well, I'm quite happy with that because he's in my X team.
Exactly that, 30% cheering him on. That's quite good there. I need him just to get an assist because it benefits me in this game, but it doesn't in the other. It's a nightmare.
It becomes crazy. Simon, what about you? Are you still tinkering, or are you done and dusted?
I feel like I'm about 95% done. I have a feeling that I'll question it quite a bit between now and 11:45 UK time, but I'm more or less settled on the team right now.
Okay, well, we'll let you get back to bed and sleep on it if that's the case. What you are going to do, I would be.
It's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us, and we've got to get you on a Scoutcast early in the season when Granville will be back, John will be back. So we'll do that. We'll book you in early, and also, we'll hopefully see you in the UK soon. We'll claim your FPL prize. And Luke, thanks for joining us again. Good luck tomorrow with your Sky lineup as well as your FPL lineup.
Thank you.
Good luck to you as well, Simon. And thanks for listening out there, and thanks for contributing to the thread. Sorry we didn't look at too many teams, but I hope some of the stuff that we've been chatting about will help you out. We had a decent audience tonight, so that's good to see. Obviously, all here to see you, Luke. That's what it was.
Of course.
And it's good night. It's good night for me. Good night, Simon.
Good night.
And good night, Luke. See you later.
Good night. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Good night, all.
Yeah.